Welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome back to Shakti Rising. I'm just letting a few more people into the meeting. We're going to begin with a meditation this afternoon. So I'm going to invite you to just get yourself ready for a short meditation. Find a comfortable seat. Obviously, if you're driving or you're busy, that's okay. We can still practice together. But if you're able to sit and be in position to do practice, then please come to sitting for meditation. And as you come to sit for meditation, just gently close down your eyes and take a moment to find a connection with your breath. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land. For me, that's the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. To acknowledge the golden chain of teachers that come before us in the Bhakti Yoga tradition. And to acknowledge the wisdom keepers from our own personal culture and ancestry. For those of you who are just joining us now, we're beginning with a meditation. So please find a comfortable seat for meditation. And this meditation is particularly potent for reconnecting us to the divine spark within. I chose today a quote or a sloka, a verse from the great spiritual scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. This is from chapter 10, verse 20 of Bhagavad Gita. There is a spiritual spark in your body, and the seed of the sacred dwells in your heart. Move your life gently into alignment with that. There is a spiritual spark in your body, and the seed of the sacred dwells in your heart. Move your life gently into alignment with that. So the emphasis in this teaching is that we each contain within us already a little seed or a spark of the divine. The yogic philosophy, particularly the Bhakti tradition, suggests that God or the goddess, the divine, isn't a concept or an entity that lives outside of us. In fact, we have within us an element, a seed, a spark, a resonance of the divine. We could think of this like God or the goddess or source is the ocean, and within us we have a little drop of water. So when we return back to our source, back to God, back to the goddess, it's almost like we re-immerse ourselves back into that ocean. And so this meditation practice that we'll start with today is really just a reminder of that. We use the words, I am spirit soul. I am spirit soul. And you might be wondering, why don't we just say spirit, or why don't we just say soul? Well, there's actually quite a specific reason for that. So the spirit part is the reminder of that which is outside of us: God, goddess, source, higher power, the universe, whatever you want to call it. The name isn't important. So that's the reminder of the entity of the goddess, the manifestation of the goddess that we spoke about yesterday, which is Shakti, that is outside of us. And then the soul part relates to that which is within us. So within yogic understanding, we would think of that as the Atman or as the Anandamaya Kosha. Again, names aren't so important. But the idea is that there's this kind of almost like an umbilical cord or a strand or a thread that connects what is within our hearts to what is outside of us, and that we are one and the same. So when we use this phrase, I am spirit soul, we're literally reminding ourselves, I am the soul and I am deeply connected to the spirit of Shakti. And this meditation is actually very, very potent. It's very powerful. We use the words, I am spirit soul, as a kind of reminder This is a meditation I use, to be really honest, it's a meditation I use when I'm feeling really stressed. Like if I'm feeling really like overwhelmed, there's too much going on, disconnected, especially when it's like very in the head, like there's just a lot of kind of chitter chatter and the mind is very overactive, then this particular practice, I Am Spirit Soul meditation, it just really anchors you back into what's important. It reminds you of that thread, that umbilical thread that connects you with the divine. So my invitation is that you might want to place a hand on your heart as we do this meditation, and we do it with the breath. We're going to meditate for about 5 minutes, so just a short and sweet practice. We'll gently close down the eyes. Take a moment to bring awareness to your breath and to come into your body. Feel the connection of your seat with the earth. Feel the connection to earth. And then bring a light, an opening, an awareness to the crown of your head. And bring light, opening, and awareness to the heart center. And the hand on the heart will help you to remember that. And then we're going to simply inhale, I am. Exhale, spirit, soul. I am on the inhale. Exhale, spirit, soul. Continue like this, breathing in silently, internally, repeating to yourself the words I am. And on the exhale, silently, internally, spirit, soul. Inhale, I am. Exhale, spirit, soul. And in the beginning, you might notice that the mind wants to kind of intellectually analyze what that means. There's a little bit of analysis, but as you continue, the mantra begins to do its work. It begins to cleanse and clear, and the meaning becomes less and less important. And actually, what we start to find is the connection with relationship. Connection with the goddess. I am spirit soul. I am the goddess. I am Shakti. And if your mind wanders off, if you get distracted, just know that's quite normal. Gently bring it back to the breath, back to this mantra. I am spirit soul. A couple more minutes like this. Quiet meditation. And then allow the phrase, I am spirit soul, to float away and release your hand down, but keep your eyes closed, staying with that inner awareness. And just taking a moment now to notice how that practice has left you feeling, just to notice what's come up, if anything, how the mind is, how the body is, just making an observation. And bringing the palms of your hands together in front of your heart. May all beings everywhere be happy and free. May the thoughts, the words, and the actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and to that freedom for all. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. There is a spiritual spark in your body, and the seed of the sacred dwells in your heart. Move your life gently into alignment with that. Namaste. So I'd love for you to share in the chat anything that came up in that meditation, anything that you observed or noticed. I'd also love for you to grab your journal and your pen and pop anything in your journal that came up during that meditation as well. It's one that I practice regularly, and it's a potent meditation that can be done in a very short amount of time. So if you only have 5 minutes or, 2 or 3 minutes, it's sort of a fast track connection, that meditation. And I've often found, both in my own practice and in teaching from what women who I work with have shared with me, that actually it's really quite powerful. It can lead to quite profound transformation, because we're reminding ourselves of the deepest part of who we are. We're actually reminding ourselves, when we do that meditation, of our connection to source. It's the most important remembering that we can do. So just taking a few moments to either share in the chat or journal on that meditation practice. A moment of reflection. And now in the quote that I shared with you from Bhagavad Gita, the verse from the Bhagavad Gita, the recommendation or the suggestion is move your life into alignment with the spirit of the goddess that lives within you already, that's already there. And I want to focus on that today a little bit. And specifically, I really want to focus on it in terms of our mornings and how we start the day, because I feel that this is a really potent time, the morning time. For me, my morning routine changes a lot depending on what's going on with my kids at the moment, because I have a young baby. If I'm really honest with you, I actually often use my morning to get some work done. It's the time when I feel most clear-headed and able to really focus. And as the day goes on, I sort of get more and more distracted and bogged down with other things that are going on and find it harder to do really good, clear thinking type of work. So for me, often I get up quite early and I do a little bit of work before the day begins. That's my rhythm at the moment. It hasn't always been my routine. And then I get my kids off to school and do that whole kind of morning thing. And then after that is when I'll sit and do some meditation or some sort of sadhana, some sort of spiritual practice. Probably when I don't have a baby anymore, I imagine when she starts sort of preschool or something like that, I'll do my sadhana, my spiritual practice, first thing in the morning. And that's what I have been doing for years prior till quite recently. But as I said, I'm mixing it up at the moment a bit to have that thinking time in the morning. But either way, there's a couple of things in there. First of all, morning time, the beginning of the day at some point, is a really powerful time to include some kind of sadhana, some kind of spiritual practice. And then second of all, that we can really anchor our day in the right kind of vibration if we just take a moment in the mornings to set ourselves up in the right way. One practice that I do have that's really strong, which is something I've been doing for years, it was taught to me by my teacher, Sharon Gannon, who I mentioned yesterday, many years ago, is a practice around that first few moments of waking. So she talks about this a lot in her book, The Magic 10, which is a fantastic book. One of the questions that somebody asked me, I've been asking you guys to email me in your questions for tomorrow. And one of the questions that I've received, and I'm very open to receiving more, so please keep your questions coming. You can email me and I'll be addressing them tomorrow, is for book recommendations. And I'll talk more about that tomorrow. But for now, The Magic 10 by Sharon Gannon is definitely a great book for this subject of the morning rituals, the morning routine, and remembering that divine spark within us through our morning sadhana. I think a lot of women get put off the idea of doing a morning ritual or having a morning routine because they feel like they don't have time. And what I want to remind you of is it can literally just be a few moments, right? It can just be a few minutes. It can be lighting a candle, saying a very brief prayer. And going back to what I was saying before, it can literally be the practice of training your mind for the moment of waking. So this is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, and it's also mentioned in a couple of other important Vedic scriptures. The moment of waking and the moment of falling asleep in Vedic philosophy and teaching is seen to be really, really important. What you are allowing into your consciousness in those moments is potent, and it actually creates a lot of messaging for the subconscious. So if you fall asleep scrolling on your phone or in front of the television or in some other kind of absent-minded way, you're actually creating imprints, or what we call in Sanskrit samskaras. Samskaras mean impressions into the subconscious mind. On the other hand, if you fall asleep, excuse me, chanting mantra or practicing gratitude, or in meditation, like the one that we just did, inhale, I am, exhale, spirit, soul, that will create a completely different type of samskara. So a very potent practice that I'm inviting you to take on is to really notice what happens in those few moments of falling asleep and waking up. And I can tell you right now that one of the best things you can do to facilitate that is to keep your mobile phone out of the bedroom. I know how difficult that can be. Many of us use a phone as an alarm. So there's always that excuse of, oh, well, I need it for an alarm. But the minute your alarm goes off and you pick it up and it's in your hand, the temptation to look at it and start doing things with it is often too strong. So if you can find another way to get yourself awake, an old-fashioned alarm clock is good, or some other system, and then keep the phone out of the bedroom, I promise you there will be so many benefits to that. So as we're falling asleep, we literally, like, you're lying in bed, right? It's the end of the day, you're falling asleep, and you're just creating a samskara, an impression in your mind of remembering connection to the divine. And it's a conscious practice. You could do the I am spirit soul meditation. You could do a gratitude practice of like remembering the things that you're grateful for. You could do a safety practice. This is a really beautiful one. So I often do this when I've been feeling very busy. I'll lie in bed and I'll literally remind my nervous system that I am safe. So as you're lying in bed, you're breathing and you're literally reminding yourself, I'm comfortable, I'm warm, my belly is full of food, my nervous system is regulated, I'm safe. That's a beautiful practice to do as you fall asleep, just to remind yourself, literally to say those words internally. And if you have loved ones that you live with, like, you know, I've got my partner and I'm a baby and children, you can remind yourself that they're all safe and well also. Beautiful, beautiful practice if you have a family, to just literally see your children in your mind's eye, see your partner, even if they're right next to you, but see them in your mind's eye, and just remind yourself, anchor into that feeling of safety, comfort. We're warm, we're comfortable, we're safe. And what that does is it really helps you to put to the side any petty niggles that you might have. You know, we were talking yesterday about irritations that we can have with partners, housemates, siblings, parents, whatever it might be, children. In doing that practice, it really helps us to remember what's important. There's a beautiful practice in Buddhism called the Metta Bhavana. I'm just writing a few notes in the chat for those of you that want to follow along. The Metta Bhavana is a practice that the Buddha taught, which is very similar to this nervous system regulation practice, in which we send loving kindness to different people. So as you're lying there in bed in those few moments, as you're falling asleep, you might be thinking about your children, your parents, your partner, your friends, extended family members, people that you work with, your neighbors, people within your community, and literally sending them loving kindness, sending them metta. This is another beautiful practice to use as you're falling asleep. And then in the moment of waking in the morning, we have a similar practice that we undertake, that literally as we come to consciousness, as we wake, we train the mind to remember Shakti, to remember the divine, to remember the goddess. And again, the way in which you do this, really up to you. It can be quite a personalized, it is a very personal, it's very intimate practice. It might be a mantra. It might be that for you, the easiest way to do that is in reciting of a mantra, or it might be the sending of loving kindness or the remembering of gratitude. Ideally, it won't be jumping straight into all the busy things that you have to do that day, right? It's not like checking your emails or checking Facebook or remembering your list of things to do. It's just taking a moment before all of that kicks in to just sit in the comfort of being in your bed and waking up and starting a new day, and also sit in the gratitude of that as well. Now, the reason that the scriptures tell us that these two transitions, the moment of falling asleep and the moment of waking up, are so important is because actually what they mimic, or what they prepare us for, is the moment of death. And the yogic scriptures, the yogic teachings, are very interested in the moment of death. It's something that we don't talk about very much in our Western culture. It's not very trendy or sort of Instagram friendly to start talking about the moment of dying. It's not something that many people feel inspired by. But in Eastern culture, in the yogic teachings, it's very, very important. Like what we're thinking about and what's happening in our consciousness as we transition from this embodiment to no longer being in this body matters. And so as we practice falling asleep at night and training our minds to be in connection to the goddess, in connection to Shakti, in connection to the divine, we're almost doing a practice run, like a dress rehearsal, for that very last exhalation that will eventually, inevitably come to all of us. And if we can practice that in our daily lives and become comfortable with it, the idea is that in the moment of death, when we leave this physical body, we're also more at ease, we're more comfortable, and we're able to make that transition in a way that it's not filled with fear and anxiety. There's a sense of being reconciled around it. So that's a beautiful practice that I'd love you to bring to your awareness as part of this idea of embodying the Shakti rising, the principle of the goddess, paying attention to what's happening in the moment of waking and in the moment of falling asleep. And then extending out into that, the morning routine. So I'm going to invite you now to just spend a couple of moments reflecting back on your morning today. We're going to use today as an example, right? And as you were waking up, see if you can remember what is it that you were thinking about as you were waking, and then what were the first few things that you did in your morning this morning. Just get your notebook or your paper and your pen and just make a few notes now. What were the first few things that you did in your morning this morning? Because here's the thing, right? If I ask you to write down hypothetically what you do in the mornings, is probably going to look quite different to what you actually do. Like what we aspire to and think we would like to be doing isn't necessarily what's actually going on. So how quickly did you reach for your phone? How quickly did you get out of bed? What were you thinking about when you woke up? What were the first few things that you did? Just take a moment to journal on that. And as well as the practical things, like, the things you actually did, like, I made a coffee or I used the bathroom or whatever it might be, what was the feeling tone? If you had to use some words to describe the feeling tone, how would that be? Was it relaxed and peaceful? Was it rushed? Was it grounded? Was it fluid and airy? How did it feel? The first couple of hours or the first hour or so of being awake on this day? And then I want to ask you, within all of that, within the notes that you've made and the reflections that you've had, was there space for the divine? Was there space for Shakti? Where did you find it or not? And there's no judgment here. It's not that if there was an absence of that connection, it's nothing to beat yourself up over. It's just to notice at this point. Because we're going to investigate where we do find the divine throughout our day. Like, at what moments is that relationship available to us? But I want to suggest to you that the doorway is most open. The connection is most available when we're first waking up in the morning. This is why almost every spiritual tradition, almost every religious practice recommends some kind of morning practice, morning prayer, morning sadhana. And certainly not just in the yogic tradition, like in many, many different religions and spiritual traditions, this is a recommendation. So let me ask you to share in the chat, like, how was the morning for you this morning? What was the feeling of that? And then, was there some connection to divine or not? Did it feel quite absent? Did it feel quite connected? Perhaps you still had some thread from yesterday, because we'd already done the first day of our training yesterday. So maybe that was a little bit present for you this morning. That would be lovely to hear. What are some of the thoughts and feelings around that are coming up for you? Please share. Beautiful. Shondel's saying that she wakes up to her child coming in for a cuddle. That's such a beautiful way to wake up. And that practice of gratitude is so easy to inspire when that's how you get woken. Yeah, Kelly saying not checking the phone and then some chanting. Beautiful. And lighting a fire. That's a beautiful way to start the day. Not checking the phone is really such a powerful one. Yeah, just a quiet cup of tea, just appreciating the silence. And I find when the weather's a little bit cooler, like it is now, and it's starting to cool down, actually, we really, I find it easier to have this morning routine. It's a little slower, which is nice. It really helps to kind of slow things down rather than being a sort of very like fast-paced rush. Yeah, and it does take a while with the morning routine, especially the no phone and the sadhana element. It's a training. It's not our natural instinct. So don't be surprised if it's a little bit difficult to begin with, but then it becomes easier. Yeah, beautiful. So Erica's talking about that capacity to be able to change our mood. You know, when we're feeling a certain, whatever it might be, frustration, anxiety, worry, overwhelm. And then this is what these tools are all about, right? We, instead of just dropping into that and becoming in a bad mood and letting it take over, first of all, we catch ourselves and we notice, okay, I'm not in good alignment right now, something's going on. And then we have all these different tools that we can use to make that transformation. It's really so potent and so simple. Yeah, beautiful. Carrying a little bit of yesterday's energy, which is nice to hear. Trying not to look at the phone. Yeah. 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 A lot of you are saying, wishing that you'd spend a little bit more time in that moment of sadhana, that moment of meditation before rushing into work. Yeah. And like I said, different seasons, right? Like for me, that time in the morning at the moment is really precious for work. And then the sadhana comes a little bit later. But that doesn't mean I don't still spend a few moments in the beginning just coming into that place of connection, because I definitely always do. Yeah. And Shondell, you know, if you find it difficult to sit down and do 10 minutes of formal meditation in the morning, which is often difficult when you're rushing around, just taking time to check in as you're doing your morning routine, as you're making your cup of tea, as you're making your breakfast, as you're using the bathroom, as you're getting dressed, make those things into a sadhana, the things that you have to do anyway. We can be practicing I am spirit soul as we're doing those types of you know, mundane everyday activities. It's perfectly possible that we can bring the element of Shakti into that. Beautiful. Yeah, I love the idea of feeding the birds. That's one of the recommendations that Sharon makes in her book, The Magic 10, and it's such a beautiful way to start the day. Okay, there's one last little piece that I want to share with you today, which is around this idea of staying in connection with the divine as we move through the day. So definitely remembering within the morning routine to find that connection and kind of set it up. It's like you're setting up your day in the right way. You really are. You're setting up your day to be in connection and guided by spirit rather than guided by ego when we do that first thing in the morning. The other thing I want you to spend a little time contemplating today is where there are moments of high stress in your day where you get really, and this happens to all of us, it certainly happens to me often, where you get really caught up in feeling like you are the one in the driving seat of everything that's happening and forgetting this practice of surrender to the divine, right? So as you're going through your day, as you're doing things, and it can be just like, again, very mundane things. It might be logistics, like it might be a school pickup or a difficult work conversation or going to the post office to mail something out. Life admin, you know, dealing with, I spent 45 minutes on the phone today with an insurance company, that type of thing, right? Which we all have to deal with. And those things can pull us so far from our sense of center and peace and connection. So I'd love to just invite you to spend a few moments reflecting on how can I take those moments, the very sticky or the irritating or the sort of pulling you out of center moments, and return them back to source. Like my teacher Sharon Gannon always says, return it back to source, hand it back over. There's a beautiful Sanskrit word that I want to share with you today. Some of you have heard me teach and speak about this word before. The word is swaha, swaha. And it literally means to surrender and to hand over, to give it up. And usually it relates to God or to the divine or to the goddess. So in India, very commonly a particular practice is done known as puja, and puja is like a religious sort of cleansing practice or cleansing ceremony. Those of you who are coming to India with us on retreat, we're going to go on an amazing puja in Hardwar, right on the edge of the Ganges, and we'll see a fire ceremony, and we'll see this exact practice that I'm talking about now happening. But you can do this in your own home as part of a meditation practice. You don't need to be on the, side of the river Ganges in India, although that's a very beautiful location to do it. And so as we swaha, we hand over, we release, we let go, and we actually cultivate a relationship with Shakti, with the divine, with the goddess, that enables us to relax into the embrace of being supported. Right? It's not like I have to fight my way through. I have to figure everything out. I have to grapple with this, phone call or this insurance company or this traffic or whatever it is. I can just let it go. And that's the sentiment of this teaching of Swaha. So we're going to end with a short meditation today using this word, this potent practice. And we're going to do a visualization with it. So here's how we're going to do it. We're going to use the right hand. Left hand is just resting down. And I want you to imagine that you've got a big pile of flowers next to you, marigolds or some kind of very beautiful flowers. And they're all there just piled up right next to you. With your right hand, you're going to pick one of the flowers. Let's say it's a marigold. Hold it to your heart. And for a moment, think of something that worries you, something that you're anxious about, something that's niggling, irritating. Could be something really small like housework. It doesn't have to be a big, overwhelming problem. And then as you silently internally say to yourself the word Swaha, I hand it over, I give it up, I surrender it. You're going to bring your hand forward in a mudra, a hand configuration, and release the flower to the earth in front of you. It's an offering, okay? And then we pick up another flower over to the right side, hold it to the heart, take a moment, bring to mind something that is troubling you, something that's hard work in your life. Swaha, bring it forward, allow the flower to fall out of the hand in this beautiful mudra to the earth in front of you. Release and pick up another flower. Let's continue like this. It's a visualization, meditation practice. Now, if there is something going on in your life that is painful for you, that is really hard, you can keep the same thing in mind throughout the meditation. Perhaps you've had a big argument with someone. Perhaps there's a fractured relationship in your life right now. Swaha, hand it over, allow the hand to come forward. The flower drops and we take another one. You can visualize your flower dropping into the earth. You can visualize it dropping into water like a river, or you can visualize it dropping into the ceremonial fire, puja, whichever you prefer. As you hold the offering to your heart, hold in mind whatever it is that's troubling you, whatever it is that you're worried about. Could be the same thing over and over again. We continue to let it go. We continue to return it to source, return it to the goddess, Swaha. Okay, continue the practice for a few rounds in your own time now, visualizing picking up that flower, the offering, holding in mind the challenge, the worry, the anxiety, the argument, the tension. And then releasing it to the earth, to the water, to the fire, Swaha. A few quiet moments to practice in your own time. This is your offering. This is your puja. This is your opportunity to cultivate a relationship of rest and releasing of burden by surrendering to the goddess. Swaha. 2 more rounds. Swaha. Last round, pick up your offering, hold it to your heart. Whatever it is you wish to release, whatever it is you're ready to let go of. And offer it up. Let it go to the water, to the earth, to the fire. Swaha. knowing that there are infinite flowers in that pile that you can offer to the goddess. You can surrender time and time and time again. Constantly handing over, constantly releasing, constantly dropping back into the embrace and the support of the divine. I'm going to end with a very short Sanskrit prayer, a prayer that will send you blessings. And invite you, before we meet again for our final session tomorrow, to remember these teachings as you go to bed tonight. Remember these teachings as you wake up tomorrow morning. And next time you find yourself in a moment of disconnect, a moment of frustration, a moment of anger even, just let those flowers drop to the earth and surrender into the lap of the goddess. Bring the palms of the hands together in front of your heart. This prayer reminds us that our practices are powerful, that our intentions are purposeful, and that as we come together to practice, it becomes more luminous, more vibrant. The potency of our intention is amplified in our community, in our togetherness. Sahana vavatu, sahana bhunaktu, saha viryam karavavahai, tejasvinavaditamastu, ma vidvisavahai. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful evening. Take these practices with you. We'll meet again for the last time tomorrow. Feel free to be in touch. It was lovely to receive messages from so many of you after yesterday's session. I really enjoy getting your feedback and getting your messages, so feel free to reach out. And I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Haribol.